Well, the breaking news, of course, this hour, Eskom CEO Andrew de Ruyter resigning. Our business editor, Xolani Mbanjwa, with us also, Professor Mark Swilling. Xolani, good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to you both. Xolani, first, your reaction.
This is coming as no surprise at all. Something that one would say it's a worst-kept secret that a lot of people have been gunning for Andrew de Ruyter. There's been a lot of pressure on him. We are sitting currently on stage 5. He took over the role in January 2020 at a time when there was a lot happening when it comes to Eskom, and it's just a poisoned chalice, this particular job. I think the most difficult thing today has been to confirm this story, because even Eskom itself has not come out to say this is what's happening and these are the reasons behind it. But you asked me of whether Andrew de Ruyter's departure will make any absolute difference to what we are going through in terms of the 8 to 10 hours of load shedding that we are being subjected to. Absolutely not. Tomorrow, this weekend, we're still going to get bouts of load shedding, and the COO has said, Jan Oberholzer, there is still going to be load shedding for some months to come.
Professor Mark Swilling is the co-director of the Centre for Sustainability Transitions at the Stellenbosch University. Professor, afternoon to you. Do you think it was inevitable that de Ruyter was going to go?
No. I don't think one can say that. I think that, yes, I agree, he's been under a lot of pressure. He was attacked by the Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy in the strongest possible terms, accusing Eskom of plotting treason. And unfortunately and sadly, no one came to his rescue. The President didn't. The Minister of Public Enterprise didn't. The Minister of Finance didn't. And most significantly of all, his board didn't. And that is the one that I really, really, really find puzzling. That's not how things should be done.
So how important is the politics of this? I mean, is the politics determining all of this?
I think absolutely. I mean, the combination of the attacks on him, the sabotage of the power stations, which is politically motivated, the ad hoc decisions about whether to support Eskom or not financially, the failure to get local government into line to pay back the 50 billion. I think there's a set of political disconnects, the failure of a political agreement amongst the key factions and elites, policy elites, to say, for the sake of the nation, we must save the South African energy system, and Eskom is a key part of that. That's what we didn't get. And if I was the CEO of Eskom under those circumstances, I would also question whether I could do the job properly.
Professor Swilling, 2 years that Andrew de Ruyter was on that particular job, what would you say he achieved, if anything at all? Because a lot of his critics are still saying that he was never the right person for that job. Well,
I mean, firstly, he broke all the records. So he served longer than nearly all his predecessors. So that's a significant achievement to have lasted 2 years in the worst possible job in South Africa and one of the worst in the world. So I think his most significant achievement was to honestly and clearly state that South Africa's energy future is not a coal future. His famous phrase was, "Let's beat our coal shovels into windmill blades." And that statement basically was a visionary statement that said, let's face facts. We cannot go up against the rest of the world. There's a South African disease that has historically made us the pariah of the world. We cannot do it again. We must go along with the rest of the world, which is decarbonizing. Otherwise, our exports get penalized, our energy prices go up in price, and we will then, as he said, we'll have permanent load shedding by 2024 if we don't build renewables now. And he said that back in 2020. And he was right.
Professor, what does the board do now? They will obviously have to find a new CEO. I don't know if anyone will want the job. I don't know if we might see, someone maybe on the board being pushed into service as the CEO. How do you see that playing out?
Well, I think I would really hate to be the chair of that board at this moment in time, squeezed between the politicians and a potentially viable business. So they're going to have to appoint an acting chief executive very quickly, and that person's life is going to become more of a nightmare than it already is. Obviously, it's an internal candidate of some kind. And it could take up to another year to get a new CEO appointed. And this is the year that really matters. This is the moment when Eskom has run out of money to buy diesel to keep the lights on. And if the orders are not placed now for diesel, we're looking at prolonged periods of stage 6 load shedding by January. And this is the moment that the CEO resigns because nobody came to his defense. This is the worst possible moment because you need to get that money from the South African banks because the National Treasury has said we're not going to bail you out. But will the banks come to the party under these conditions? This is a very, very tough job. I'm at a complete loss for words how serious this crisis is.
One thing, Professor Swilling, that is still startling is that Eskom itself seems to have failed to communicate this particular decision. Why do you think there's so much secrecy around such an important role, such an important CEO in SOE resigning, yet there's dead air?
I really don't know. I can only imagine that the divisions within Eskom, the tensions between the executive and the board, the tensions between the board and some political groupings are just getting more intense. There's going to be a lot of people looking to lay blame. Who knows what Andre de Ruyter said to his executive team. All I can imagine is he probably said, I've reached the end of my tether because nobody came to my defense. How do you communicate that if you're a state-owned enterprise?
Professor Mark Swilling, thank you, Co-Director of the Centre for Sustainability Transitions at the University of Stellenbosch. Well, a lot more reaction to come in just the next few moments. Xolani Mbanjwa, business is going to be looking at all of this. They're looking at various aspects of this. There's a de Ruyter story, sure. The de Ruyter story will be a big story for the next 48 hours. It will be followed by a political story involving a conference of some kind. But the long-term story really is the stage 5 load shedding and the no money for diesel.
Yes, and the National Treasury has already said that there's processes that have to be followed in order for National Treasury to come in with that money that Eskom needs. A lot has been said about, even by board members inside and Andre de Ruyter himself, saying the procurement policies that apply nationally must be revised when it comes to the urgency of matters that are facing Eskom, because you can't be going through each and every process. It's time consuming, and that's why the National Treasury is saying that there are processes to be followed when it comes to asking for money in a manner like this. What is clear is that we are still going to have load shedding for a while to come, whether Andre de Ruyter is there or not.
Phakamile Hlubi Majola is the spokesperson for one of the big unions, the two big unions at Eskom, Numsa. She joins us now. Phakamile, good afternoon to you, and I appreciate you joining us at very short notice. Unfortunately, just going to battle to connect her. She's with us now. Phakamile, good afternoon to you. I appreciate you joining us at very short notice, and thank you very much indeed. You're on TV now with us. Your reaction to the resignation of Andre de Ruyter? I'm afraid, Phakamile, that you're still on mute. If you could just join us, please, in this conversation, I'd really appreciate it. We'd like to be able to hear you. Phakamile, we're still, unfortunately, still not able to actually hear you in that connection, so we are going to continue this conversation with Xolani Mbanjwa in the meantime. We talk about this energy crisis. What's really important is how long it takes to actually get things back to some kind of normal. I don't know if that's going to happen involving Eskom.
No, and it does not inspire any confidence that we've been having load shedding since 2008. So in 6 years' time, we would have had this problem for 20 years, and there's no end in sight. What we are hearing now is that when it comes to the immediate future of Eskom, we might see the new chairperson coming through to take over the role of a CEO. Whether that works or not, it's been proven that does not work, having the chairman of the company being the CEO of the same company. So this is, at the end of the day, people really out there do not really care who is CEO and who is chairperson. They just want the lights on. And from what Professor Swilling has just told us, we should be very worried for the next couple of months.
All right, Phakamile Hlubi Majola, third time's the charm. It is short notice. This is the kind of thing that happens when we ask people to join us at short notice. I do appreciate you doing that. Phakamile, from Numsa, your response to the resignation of Andre de Ruyter.
As Numsa, we are overjoyed that Andre de Ruyter has finally decided to do the right thing for the country and resign. He has been the worst CEO that Eskom has ever had. We have experienced load shedding on a scale that we've never known in the history of the existence of Eskom. The energy availability factor of the entity has dropped to the lowest it has ever been in history. And as Numsa, we said from the beginning that this was the wrong person for the job. And unfortunately, we were proven right. But we are absolutely thrilled that he's finally decided to remove himself. He had no clue what he was doing. And ultimately, at the end of the day, a CEO of Eskom has to be able to manage load shedding. And if they're unable to do that, then they're failing in the most basic requirement of their responsibilities.
What do you think should happen now? Technically, this rests with the board. I'm sure that that the position of new CEO, whoever it will be something debated by government at government level as well. What do you think should happen next?
What needs to happen now is that we need to find a suitably qualified person to do the job. One of the reasons that Numsa was vehemently opposed to Andre de Ruyter's appointment in the first place is because he was a lawyer. He was not even an engineer. He'd never run a power utility like Eskom before, and we knew that he would have a very difficult time actually being able to perform in his job. So we are not surprised that that under his tenure we've experienced the worst levels of load shedding. We call on the board to do the right thing, find us an engineer who has worked at Eskom and understands how Eskom works, so that we can have people at the helm of the organization who can run it properly. Our economy is collapsing. Patients are dying in hospitals. It is completely unacceptable that this man was even allowed to keep his job for as long as he did. But we are grateful that he has finally seen the good sense to vacate himself from this position. He was the wrong person from the start.
Phakamile, Xolani Mbanjwa here. Let me ask you what you think the new person, whomever it is, should be doing differently that, according to Numsa, Andre de Ruyter didn't do.
Well, one of the things we struggled with Andre de Ruyter was, first of all, to get him to consult and work with unions, particularly with regards to solving this problem of load shedding. As you know, we actually have the technical expertise to solve this crisis. There was a time when Eskom had CEOs that were able to curb load shedding in the form of Brian Molefe and Matshela Koko. And the skills to do that still exist within the organization. The problem is that Andre, for the last couple of years, has been targeting power station managers, targeting specially skilled individuals, under the assumption that these people were somehow connected to the old regime. He's been attacking unions. He's been refusing to work with us. There's no way you're going to solve Eskom's crisis if you're not going to work with important stakeholders like trade unions. And that already was one of his most fatal mistakes in our view. And we really think that this time around, it's not good enough to just get a warm body, which is unfortunately seems to have been the attitude of the previous school board and also the minister, for frank. We need somebody who really and truly understands the technical aspects of this business. And if I may also just add, one of the things that we also urgently need is for the Minister of Public Enterprises, Pravin Gordhan, to also remove himself. He must also do the country a favor and resign. Because this minister has been interfering in the running of all state-owned entities, and they are collapsing as a result, because he's another person who also doesn't have a clue about what he's doing. So if we really want to solve the problem of Eskom, not just from a load-shedding perspective, but all of its related challenges, we need people who really care about the future sustainability of this entity and who care about finding the right individuals to do the right job.
You talk about Pravin Gordhan. Does that extend to the Energy Minister as well?
We have serious problems with the Energy Minister. If you recall, we actually issued a statement yesterday saying that we think it is quite obnoxious of him to claim that Eskom is attempting to, I think the words he used was to overthrow the government. We find that to be quite ridiculous. These are ministers appointed by the governing party who are actively destroying Eskom because they're driving a narrow agenda. It's about time these people started doing the work that they were appointed to do and stop politicizing and ensure that we actually have a guaranteed energy supply. Our economy is collapsing. As Numsa, we've experienced high levels of retrenchments. And when you look at the reasons that are given for why companies are retrenching or shutting down, it's load shedding. We're a trade union where the majority of members exist in manufacturing, exist in factories, and we have seen a lot of companies, especially small and medium-sized enterprises, literally just crumbling because of this electricity problem. So really, we need ministers who are not going to waste our time, who are going to get serious about this problem. We know that for many of them, they don't even know what load shedding is, but we really need people who care about this country to assist us with finding viable solutions.
Phakamile, thank you. Phakamile Hlubi Majola, spokesperson for the National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa.
Well, Stephen, I think it's quite important to state once again that Eskom is yet to issue a statement or even speak publicly about the reported resignation of Andre de Ruyter as the CEO of Eskom, and we await them to come out with any information as to the reasons behind this.